honest with myself and with the people around me of like, hey, I need to reconcile what's truth in my life and what isn't, and reconcile the hurt that that's caused me and the people around me. I remember I was going to a couple counselors because I had lots of problems, and one of the counselors I went to um, gave me an assignment, and I think this was maybe a year and a half into my time back in Oshkosh, and the assignment was they gave me a notepad and said, write down every lie that you can remember that you've told. And immediately my question was, what if I can't remember? And they looked me straight in the face and they said, you can remember. And they were dead right. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just like, I sat down and just started writing when I got home, and it was abysmal. And so I
Like
wrote
lies
down,
that you tell
hey,
yourself, or like lies that you.
everything, lies that I
Okay,
have told
everything.
myself. Like, so there was kind of two lists. There was the lies that I told myself, which are like,
Okay.
we'll deal with those separately. And then there's um, the lies that the lies that I've told other people.
Okay.
And it was just pages, pages of lies. And they went back really far. And then I remember going back the next week and I was like, cool, I did it. That was horrible. He's like, just wait. Because now you got to share them with someone. And I was like, shut up. I'm done. I'm done with counseling. I'm well. I'm fixed. I think we're good here. Sons of Thunder. Uh, and at that time, I was so scared to do that. But I was like, well, I'm going to share them with my dad. So I shared them with my dad. I said,
Mhm.
hey, so this is the thing I told you I had done last week. I wrote all these down. And you can say no because you're in some of these. It's like, would you read these? And he was like, yes, I will. And he read through them, and we didn't talk for a few days. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, we did, but it wasn't like a let's talk about that. We just sort
Right,
of
right, right, sure.
talked about what our day was, and then that was it. Um, and I think that exercise was a really tough one to do because it was something that I just didn't want to do, to lay everything out on the floor. But it was also like I was in a house that was burning and I'm the one who set the fire, and it just needed to burn all the way down. And that was that last like bit of like oxygen on the fire to make sure that everything burned down to the ground to where the foundation was, and then rebuild from there. And of course my dad was like a lovely human about it, but he was also, I think because I was his son too, he didn't let me get away with anything. He was like, some of these are, I had no idea. Some of them I pretty much guessed, but I take no pleasure in being like, hey, I was right. um, but he's like, okay, so now what? I was like, I don't know. And he said, cool, you've written these down, burn it, just burn it, because you're never going to forget them. And if you really care, you're never going to do those things again. So I think that propelled me on to looking at myself in a more honest way, and to be honest with when I feel like I was going down another path of being self-indulgent or selfish or losing sight really of the God and other people.
Mhm.
It became a little bit easier as time went on to see that, and also to know the consequence of that action. Um, and not that I've done it perfectly since, but it's, I don't think without kind of that idea of honesty that I would have really been able to move forward to build something better, in my life and the life of people around me. And I remember right right before I got married, um, and we were waiting on Katie or something, and that sounds bad, like waiting on the bride. That was, I mean, we're waiting for everything to get set. It wasn't just her. Um, but I took a moment and I quick ran up to where my mom and dad were sitting with like that conversation and many others in my mind, and it just knowing like I and I told them I wouldn't be here if you guys haven't wouldn't have loved me the way that you did, and like allowed me to burn the way that you did, but then stayed. And I think that's another important piece, is that I had people in my life that weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was one of the lies that I told myself, that if
Right.
I admit to these things, admit that my arm is broken, admit that I've done these things to other people, that everyone's going to leave. And some people
Sure.
did. Um, but the ones that did stay, they didn't just they weren't passive people. They were active people in my life that loved me hard to propel me to something better, to
Mm.
for myself and for the people around me, which I think is another important piece, to have those people that are gonna not just say like, "Oh, you're fine, everything's fine, it's cool," but to like also say, "No, that really was pretty crappy.
Right.
Um, yeah, you're right. You're right to feel bad about that. Don't do that anymore."
I mean, just I guess applying it to myself, like I just think that, yeah, I mean, there's times when, like in my marriage, we just celebrated 3 years, and like there's been times that I've like really hurt my wife, and it's pretty awful.
Mhm.
And it's just like an awful feeling. And to your point about true people, like, she's still around, I'm still around, but also like, um yeah, like they let you, like good people let you know when you've really hurt them, and then they stay around.
Yeah,
And I think for me and you and so many people, like that shame and guilt and those lies in our head, we just think people are not going to stay around because we've maybe never been taught it, or we
yeah.
just, I don't know, for whatever reason, we have a lot of self-doubt. But
Mhm.
then when people start to hang around, then you're like, oh, I think that's like what love is. Like
Yeah,
like I think it clicks a little bit more.
yeah, yeah. It's that. I mean, it's that sense of like, that's how you know you have like a real love, when people in one single breath can say, "Man, you really suck sometimes. I'm not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and please like be better." Or they ask like, "What can I do to
Right.
help you?" And I think that's a big piece too of, and I think another piece of that, like some of the lies that I at least told myself, and maybe it's similar with the idea of lack of confidence in ourselves, or what we bring to a relationship or bring to the table,
Yeah.
is that when we do make a mistake, it's okay if someone gets pissed about it.
Yeah. To
And
be
I
okay
was,
with people being angry. Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I would like manipulate a situation so badly, because I didn't want them to be mad.
Right.
And there
Yes.
were definitely times when I was able to work it in such a way where if they did get mad, they felt bad about it. They're like, how crappy is that? Like, that I did something horrible and then made the other person feel bad about feeling mad about it. Like,
Hmm.
oh, there's a special place in the burning house
So
for that.
this, I don't know why this. Well, I guess I know why this memory comes to my head. But when I first started at Starbucks with you,
Hmm.
um, I never worked anything other than at like a Bible store. Never done retail before. And I was working with Connor. Like this is like way early on, working with Connor, and I was the person that was supposed to set the drink down in the right spot to go out to the drive-through,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was on the headset, or no, he was making drinks, and then somebody else was on the headset, and all I had to do was like take the drink he made and put it in the right spot, and I like did it wrong, if you get one wrong, then you get like four wrong.
Yeah, right.
And he's just like, he just got so mad at me for like, and I remember in my head, like, I have a master's degree. Like, why is
Yeah,
this so,
right.
I'm so stupid. And then, like, I don't know, maybe like a year later, Connor was like, man, Andrew, I thought you were just going to be horrible at this job forever. But somehow you've turned it around. It was
Yeah,
just, I don't know.
yeah. Well,
He was so mad at me. It was a
yeah,
great
speaking of
moment.
Starbucks, I mean, that was also a big turnaround for me, was going to a place. Yeah, I had not worked really any retail. I was working
Yeah,
at
we worked
Target at the
at
same time.
churches. So,
Yeah, yeah. So it's just like where mistakes are super welcome, and
right.
uh, or at least they should be. But um, and the fact that you had the CEO of Starbucks, you know, sending these videos saying, if you make a mistake, I, as the CEO, if I was standing over your shoulder, would way rather you say, hey, I made a mistake. Let me right that wrong. Let me remake the drink so that you get what you wanted. And he goes, if they get super ticked, I would way rather them get really mad but have a good drink than be really mad and have a bad drink. And I just was like, remember thinking, what? Why is that such a big deal to me? But it just was. It just like it changed my whole mentality on people. That it was, and then that I think that was the beginning of, yeah, you make a drink wrong, someone's gonna get ticked, and that's fine. And you do then what you know is the right thing to do in that moment. To quote Frozen 2, which my 5-year-old loves
Yes.
so much, although I do too.
It's pretty
Um,
good.
just do the next right thing.
Right.
And knowing what that is, you make the drink, you put it up there. Sure, maybe you take a little licking, but because Starbucks is what Starbucks is, that person's like 10 people back in your memory at that point, within a minute, because you've had to make so many other drinks. And then you've got someone like Dawn who drives through the drive through and is happy no matter what you do. So then